Welcome to Unlayered. Today we are joined by Michael, also known as Function on Twitter. That is at FXNCTION. Michael, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Man, doing super well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining, man. A lot of things we could talk about, but I think maybe let's kick it off with just how are you feeling like in these markets? I don't even know if we could call it a bear market anymore. You know, lots happened in the last couple of weeks. It seems like the tides are shifting, so to speak, not only on the Solana front, but just broadly for crypto, especially after the XRP thing.
I feel good overall. I'm excited, We've been participating in ordinals and a whole bunch of different new ecosystems that have been growing, and seeing the market bounce and seeing this XRP news is just bullish for everything. So I'm very, very excited about it.
Likewise. Actually, what might be helpful for listeners is, obviously you have this big following on Twitter, but tell us a bit about maybe your broader story, when you got into crypto, maybe why, then how you kind of ended up in this niche that you're in these days.
I started crypto full time at the end of 2017 and started to be public in 2018. If you're around back then, most people know me as Shil Nye.
Nice name.
Yeah, Shil Nye, crypto guy. I used to have a Bill Nye PFP with Bitcoin eyes and a joint hanging out of his mouth.
Love that.
Gained some popularity on Twitter back then by just memeing and making jokes. And it led to me just going around the world and spending pretty much 2018 through 2020 traveling to different conferences for blockchain events, meeting a lot of key players in the industry, hanging out with CZ and a bunch of big guys long before they were as popular as they are today. Then as the bear market kept rolling through, it was my first bear market. I never really knew what was going on. So I went through kind of the dark side of the industry where there was a lot of negative sentiment, a lot of anger and hatred and things brewing. And I decided to take a little bit of a break at the end of 2020, I believe. And so I took a break from crypto, started to make music because music's one of my big passions.
Amazing.
And then came back to crypto, right in the NFT realm when everything was popping, made this Function account just for fun. Didn't expect for it to pop off, but made a lot of dick jokes, made a couple good trades. And all of a sudden I have 125,000 followers. And it's kind of been a big process because over the last 3-4 months, I've been really integrating more sides of myself than just the degen side. I think this account got initially very popular due to the degen mentality and nature of the crypto industry and me sharing a lot of degen trades and doing them well as a lot of jokes and the humor side. But I decided that it was time to kind of show a little bit more of my spiritual side and my intellectual side, because now I'm really focused on building a couple businesses in the industry rather than just being a trader. And that's kind of where we are today.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, actually a lot of similarities. I strongly considered being a music producer for the longest time. Minored in it in college, and my first kind of couple years out of school, I was spending a lot of time on that before around the same time, I decided to go all in on crypto around 2018, right after the ICO bubble popped, because I've been in crypto, in one way or another for a while. But I felt like that just seemed like an awesome long-term bet to make career-wise. And honestly, a lot of a potential to help the music industry, so to speak, too, where I think, there's tons of issues with happening with streaming, artists making basically nothing unless they go on tour and do a gazillion tour dates and so on and so forth. I don't know. I mean, maybe starting there, do you see any potential for crypto to help that industry in particular, given your experience on both sides?
Yeah, man, I see a lot of potential, whether it's with actual ownership of the music and royalty distributions, all of that different stuff. But I also like the technology and how it's kind of integrating with it. One of my buddies, shout out to Sam, Samuel Del Real, he's deep in the music industry as well as in crypto. And he actually built this really cool tool that I saw the other day where you can have an interactive music video. So instead of just watching a music video, you can actually go through it as the main character of the music video, collect these little tickets that could actually be NFTs or they could be tokens, and experience the music video from the perspective of the viewer, of the consumer. I thought that was really interesting. And I think there's just a lot more creative ways that we can integrate NFTs and crypto with this whole music industry itself, because the first iterations were fun and interesting and exciting, but didn't really fully catch on or at least take hold yet. And so I think there's a little bit of a deeper dive to go next bull run.
Yeah, obviously the game changer really with NFTs is that it can break down that middleman, and suddenly you can have that personal relationship between the artist and their fans early on. And to me, ticketing You hear a bit about it, but it just seems like an obvious one to me, because I remember in my youth going to early gigs of bands I really loved. You watch them get enormous. And if those tickets were NFTs, that band would be able to maintain that relationship with me, and then who knows what you can sort of end up with later on. So it's just sort of rewarding you really for for going through all the ball ache, frankly, of like looking up new bands and listening to terrible music just for that one where it all just makes sense. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. And another area, I remember, I think Multicoin spoke about it at one of their summits, but they were saying, like, if you want to do like a music label, I mean, ultimately what decides whether music is popular or not is people. And so if you could do some sort of a music label DAO or something like that, and just have the genius of the crowds really telling you which bands you should be signing up, because a couple of execs in a boardroom, they can get it wrong very easily. But if you have 1,000, 10,000, whatever people in a music label DAO, telling you this is awesome, then it's a pretty good bet. So yeah, I'm with you.
It connects the artists or the fans to the artists to a different degree. I was working for a company that was responsible for Tory Lane's first NFT drop, and so I was participating on that, and I talked with Tory a bunch. And like when I was talking with him, I was like, bro, this is a whole new capacity to connect with your fans, and for your fans to connect with you. Because in the music industry, a lot of what happens is the record labels, the production companies, they essentially, through the production of the music, through the production of the music videos, what eventually happens is the artist gets pedestaled, and that's actually how a lot of the money is actually made, is through the artist kind of perceiving themselves as above or better than their fans, and their fans always looking up to them. But I also believe there's a whole new realm to explore and a whole new perspective to explore, where the fan is actually more equal with the artists themselves and has the ability to connect with them and experience what they experience and experience their creations to a whole new degree. And so that's kind of what I'm like really bullish on in terms of like NFTs and music, is kind of like the leveling out of the playing field to a degree, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of double clicking on that point, because I think there's actually a lot of similarities with like VC-backed startups and musicians that get backed by record labels. Honestly, like record labels are in a lot of ways kind of similar to how VCs work. They're trying to find that home run artist that'll just set the world on fire and be like the face of an entire genre, so to speak. But while that's interesting, and you could produce, your Drakes of the world, or so have you, I think there's this middle ground where a lot of artists can have these cult followings and maybe not be the most popular artist in the world, but make a really healthy income with primitives enabled by crypto that, a VC would never invest in, or a record label wouldn't, because it's not that home run they're looking for to make up for the losses. But maybe, you and I, as regular participants in this journey for the artists, can benefit from, but also the artist can support their lives as a creator without having to, sell out and just make the most generic pop song that has the broadest appeal, right? Like we can have these kinds of more exploratory types of artists. They can benefit from it. They can survive. They can pay their bills. We get to have more diversity, I think, as well on the consumption side.
Yeah, I'm a really big believer in that.
There's maybe another area as well where music could be disrupted, which is AI. You just mentioned Drake, and obviously, can't remember who it was, but someone did a remix song via AI, didn't he? And I think, obviously, the great thing about AI is suddenly that can broaden who can be a creator. So that can be digital art with something like Midjourney, but also it can be music with these various AI tools. And suddenly you can just open that up to a much wider spectrum. And then if you're going to do something like that, then you need to have something like crypto in order to make sure that, who's actually created that music is, gets the recognition for it. So again, that's a different avenue, isn't it? Which could go crazy in the next few years.
Yeah, the blending of AI and crypto is going to be very interesting to me. I spent a lot of time playing with Midjourney and ChatGPT early on, and I just saw that I didn't know what it was going to be or how it's going to be, but I could see that there was a very, very large potential for the two to interface with each other and collaborate. And we're starting to see it now. I don't know if you guys have been on Twitter and watching like Jim, Roast Him Jim, and it's like this AI bot that you can tag, and it's pretty much the most viral sensation on Twitter right now. And it's paired with a crypto token and all of that different stuff and a lot of different utility between the two. But it's super interesting to me because like as these AI bots start to get integrated. It feels to me like the very first integration of actual usability with AI paired with crypto. I mean, Jim has like 20 million impressions every day.
Can you just explain what he does? Because yeah, I've not seen it.
Oh yeah, so if you tag roast him Jim under someone's post, essentially what happens is it creates an image that has an actual roast in it. So instead of maybe you wanting to go on, you seeing something from Daily Loud talking about Kim Kardashian and be like, this is so fucking stupid, da 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 da. You can just tag roast him Jim, and roast him Jim will roast the Kim Kardashian post, or will roast whatever the context is of the main post that you tagged under it. There's also praise him Jim and frame him Jim, so you can get him to praise him, or you can frame a specific quote. It's been really interesting for me. I'm an advisor for the project. It's been really interesting for me to kind of see how the growth and the expansion happens, because usually these things, when you create something inside of crypto, it stays inside of crypto. You know, it's in that community. But now Jim itself is being tagged by all these normies who don't even know it has a token, don't even know it has any crypto integration. And they're just using it constantly to the point where it gets 10, 20, or 10 to 15, sometimes 20 million impressions every single day. And to me, it seems to be the very first step for how are we going to integrate crypto with AI, and how does it also play a role on the overall culture? I find myself using it all the time, because sometimes I see some stupid ass posts on Twitter, and instead of like me wanting to get into it and get in the mud with someone and just like go back and forth, I'll just tag roast him Jim and let Jim roast him, and then just move on with my day. It's a really fun integration for Twitter. And I think that's like kind of the first step of like, how do you make crypto fun again? And how do you pair it with AI? Well, it has to be through social components.
You're obviously a creator on Twitter and advisor to projects that also have a big social following. What is kind of like your 10,000 foot view on where social, particularly like text kind of based networks like Twitter and now Threads came out? Like, how do you think this is shaking out in the next 5-10 years? Is crypto going to be a big part of it? Are you bullish things like Lens, or is there another piece that maybe people are missing here?
It's a good question. I mean, I think what people fail to realize a lot of the times is that crypto is a social game, and it's a social experiment mostly. Like the only way something ever becomes popular, and whether it's about awareness or really whether it's about floor price going up for an NFT or price going up for a coin, it's through social awareness. Like you never really see a coin just go absolutely ballistic or an NFT go crazy that isn't regularly talked about or have a very large community in like specifically the Twitter realm per se, And so I'm very, very like, that's like my main observation of all this stuff. Is how I like do trading analysis. Like I don't necessarily do a lot of TA. I know how to do TA on a very basic level, but I don't do a lot of it because I mostly just analyze social trends. And I say, oh, wow, this has a large community. It's growing. It's popular. Maybe I should spend some time and energy there and like observe it more. And I think that's kind of why crypto is fun, is because it gives you the capacity to kind of interface with a whole group of people who you've never been able to interface with before, who you don't even know about, or who you might be just getting to learn about, all of this different stuff. So yeah, kind of lead it back to your question. I think it plays a major role. I don't know how it's going to eventually into the future, but I think while there's a lot of meme coins and all of this other stuff, I think it's actually becoming more intellectual. There are subsets of people that form around meme coins and stuff like that, but a lot of the people are becoming actually interested in the technology, what it does, how it works, how it interfaces, how it brings value, utility, etc., to the ecosystem and beyond. And the more that like the group of individuals that are interfacing around certain projects or communities as a whole start to think is like a little bit more intellectually and not just on the meme side, I think it grows. That being said, like the memification of it is fucking awesome. That's actually what I think makes people like come into the industry more. A lot of people like on Twitter, like, oh, all these meme coins are ruining crypto. But I actually think it's the opposite. I think that's what makes it interesting to the normies and to the people who haven't interfaced with the technology before. Like those guys, like people who are coming into crypto don't give a fuck about transactions per second. They don't care if your blockchain is interoperable or if it's immutable. They don't even know what those words mean, you know?
Right.
They care that Harry Potter Sonic Obama 10 Inu coin has a fucking guy running around in a blue hedgehog costume, like, and making everybody laugh. That's what interfaces are. They like Dogecoin because there's some Doge on all these posters and memes, and Elon's tweeting about it. That's what catches the attention first. It's what interests people. So I think they both have like a unique balance in the industry, but as like the industry evolves, I'm seeing more and more people actually care about what the technology, what it does, why it's better than other technologies. And people are, at least this bear market to the bull market, I'm observing more people studying the actual technology and making investment decisions based off of that technology.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also it reminds me of the phrase which a lot of people talk about now of we need to find non-speculative use cases to make this next bull run go. And I'm not convinced that is the real answer, because I think basically crypto's, primary purpose is sort of the hyper financialization of everything. And so even as you're talking about social, people in their heads will be like, okay, that's a good, non-speculative use case. But I think if we're going to have a product, a social product, which is actually going to break away and become its own brand new thing, it has to incorporate some form of speculation, probably directly within it. So,
the speculation is what brings people here. You know what I mean? I think that's what like kind of gets demonized in a bear market, because people lose money off of the speculation so much. But in a bear market, or in a bull market, it's praised. People love the speculation in a bull market. And I also think it's what makes our industry unique and different, because, for example, AR and VR has been around for 5-10 years now. Really, like in the public facing view, VR has been around for at least 5 years. And there's been multiple Quest headsets and all of this stuff, but you don't see a community around VR as loud as you see it around crypto. And I actually do believe it's because of the speculative nature of crypto that allows people to say, there is a different possibility with my life. Sometimes it just starts financially, but usually it becomes like relationally and other aspects as you kind of dive deeper into the crypto realm. But I really do believe that people say like, wow, there's a different financial potential with my life. If I can buy a meme coin and throw $100 or $500 into it and turn it into $100,000 or $500,000 in a couple months, then that would change the way that I view the world. It would change the possibilities that previously existed. And I think that's what makes it fun. I think that's actually what brings a lot of attention to it. And while it's demonized in a bear market, I actually think that's what's beneficial and like exciting about the industry. Like even if you did lose all of your money, like I lost a good portion of my money, like a large portion of my money in the bear market. But what's different for me now from the last bear market is now I know that there's a potential to do it. I've done it before. I could make a lot of money from almost nothing before. And so now I know that I have the capacity to do it 10 times the next bull market, or 20 times the next bull market. And through staying in it and through staying aware and staying diligent and practicing and staying focused, I also know that there's a lot more than just making money here. There's relationship building, there's connections, there's the ability to build real businesses that actually add value to the industry. There's the ability to build community that allows other people to create connections who might feel lonely and might not have like a group of friends in real life that can support them. There's 1,000 possibilities. And I think you can only experience that the more you participate here.
Totally. Because I think that's a kind of a rite of passage, right? Where you haven't really experienced crypto unless you lost a lot of money or maybe fell for a rug pull or something like that, or got hacked. And certainly I'm no exception. Were there any like major takeaways or lessons from your experience in the last bull market compared to how you're positioning yourself now?
Bro, so many, man. So many. Yeah, so many. I think for me personally, it's really been about ego. Like last bull market, like I turned a couple $1,000 into a couple million. Partially by starting off and working for different companies and building a portfolio. Once I had a solid portfolio of USDC, I just went balls to the fucking wall and risked it and turned out really well, and in that, like my ego got really, really large. and like really just overinflated in general. And I wasn't navigating my awareness well, and therefore ended up in getting hacked 2 times in the bear market, losing over $500,000 just in hacks, watching most of my assets just go down for the rest of the bear market, still playing the game to the same degree of intensity that I was in the bull market throughout the first 6 to 12 months of the bear market, which most people know won't net you very good results. And just getting a little bit overconfident, a little over cocky with what I thought I knew versus just kind of having to navigate what everybody has to navigate here, which is the uncertainty of this market. Like the people that are really good at it know that nothing is ever promised, nothing's ever like determined or set in stone, and they flow with the waves and they surf the waves very, very well. But as soon as you start to think that you're the one that can create the waves, or you're the one like that can ride every wave perfectly, or you like start to predict that the wave is going to be way bigger than it will be, then you kind of get a little bit unbalanced when you get on the surfboard and you fall, and that happened to me last bear market. Like I really lost 99.9% of my money, just by being overconfident, over cocky, not having the right security measures in place, not like analyzing things like to a super high degree, and thinking that I could take on the world by myself, which just like wasn't true.
Do you not think it's quite a damning indictment for the industry if someone, I think you've been in since 2012, 2013, I think I heard on an interview, but someone who's been in, an OG to get hacked twice, how can we move forward? How can we actually bring normal people into this industry? Or is it forever going to be sort of, rife with people getting scammed and losing their money? It's sort of, before I asked this question, I was thinking, I feel like the best games are the ones where it's like 90% skill, but there's just 10% of luck. And maybe that's the 10% of luck in crypto is you're losing all your money. But yeah, how do you see it all playing out? How are we actually going to get this to the normies?
I mean, I think it's part of the game, if I'm being honest with you. And it's really just about being more diligent and more skillful. I wasn't diligent and I wasn't skillful. I didn't have my money on a fucking ledger like I should have. I had it in a hot wallet. Even my first hack where they took $250K from me, I still don't know how it happened. Like, I don't have my seed phrases anywhere on any digital device, anywhere. And all of them were like securely like safe in the current or in the location that it was, you know what I mean? Physically written down on pieces of paper. I thought it was like maybe a remote access hack for my computer or something. I still don't know, but I wasn't taking the necessary security measures. And like, I think I bought Bitcoin, or my buddy bought Bitcoin in 2013 for us, but it was just off of Silk Road shit. We weren't actually into crypto. And so this was like from 2017 when I first started, this was like really the first major come up that I had on a financial scale. And so I wasn't diligent enough with it. The second hack was literally just me being a dumbass and using my main hot wallet as I was trying to make a game on Solana. And so I was working with a dev. And as soon as I typed my name in as function, which was stupid, and then I connected my hot wallet, which is double stupid, he saw my NFTs. He probably knew that this was back when I was like number 10 on NFT Inspect or something. So I was like really popping on Twitter. So if he even had a Twitter profile, he knew that like, yo, I should probably hack this guy, And so I think it's just like being diligent. I think it's being more aware. I think there's a rite of passage for everyone. Doesn't mean you have to get hacked and lose all your money, but I think there's always a rite of passage, especially in the crypto realm. And I also don't think it's like it might be more savage than traditional industries, but other industries aren't lacking scams either, man. Like you can get a call from your bank and you can tell them your PIN code to verify your account, and all of a sudden it was a scammer who steals your thousands of dollars out of your bank account. Now, banks might have a little bit more security because they can refund you the money, but that's honestly not good for you in the long term, in my opinion. Like in the long term, like I'm actually grateful for all the hacks that I had, even though it was a lot of money and all of this other stuff. But I'm grateful because now I know to be more diligent. Now I know to be more aware. Now I know to be more strategic with how I'm like utilizing my funds, what I actually share publicly, because a lot of the times I think I made myself a target. Like if I'm on Twitter bragging about how I just swept 55 D gods, and then all of a sudden D gods go to fucking 10 grand each, then I'm a target. I'm a fucking target. People want my shit. And I think it's all part of the game for an individual to learn how to become more financially responsible, where they don't have like the traditional banking system or the traditional monetary system always like playing mommy and daddy for them and being like, oh, you got hacked. Oh, it's okay. We'll just refund your money. And it's really what I've always said since the beginning I got into crypto and started to really learn about it, is what it's doing is it's taking like humanity from a fiat paradigm, this paradigm where they think they're always protected, they're always safe in a bank, they're always going to earn X amount of dollars an hour and all of this stuff. And for those that choose to really participate at a high level, like I have, you're going to go through trials and tribulations, but those trials and tribulations are literally meant to like break you out of this fiat paradigm and open you up into the way that money really works. And money's just constantly flowing. It's a river. It doesn't stop moving. It doesn't stop circulating. And if you allow yourself to get stuck or you allow the money circulation to get stuck, then you're going to lose it all, or you're going to have things that affect you in order to get you out of that. And that's kind of what I've noticed in general is I think it just teaches people that process at a much higher level than any other industry will. But I also recognize that I'm the one that chose to be here. And I'm the one that's choosing to play that game, and I want to play that game. And if you can take personal responsibility for it, then you can move through all the hard shit pretty quickly.
For sure. So I kind of share this view that I think you just espoused, which is I'm skeptical of mainstream adoption occurring by complete abstraction of cryptography and any of these underlying principles. I think we're going to get to a place where people will get, at some level, comfortable with self-custody or shared custody through multi-sigs or what have you. We're not going to abstract it all away, because that's kind of the point, is that when you can take control of your keys and sign transactions, you can enable use cases that right now are being done for you or on your behalf by banks and these intermediaries. And kind of a side tangent, but interestingly, with this rise of AI and tools that allow you to emulate other people's voices, I'm actually pretty concerned that maybe boomers could get targeted and like mimic my voice, for instance, and spoof my number and like convince my mom, hey, wire me, $10,000 right now. I'm like, in a bind or something, right? Like, I think that's going to start happening.
Yeah, I mean, it super happens. It already happens with in the traditional world, where people will call your grandma. My buddy's grandma got called fucking a month ago.
Oh, wow.
And they pretended to be him. And they said, hey, grandma, I need money. And then when his grandma was like, I don't have any money to give you, he's like, fuck you, grandma. Jesus. Like, you fucking piece of shit. I never loved you. And so he had to actually, I swear this actually happened. He had to call his grandma and be like, grandma, that wasn't me. I'll never ask you for money. I love you. Just like his grandma was like sad as fuck, understandable, pretending to be him. And then last week, my ex-girlfriend, her mom actually got a call pretending to be Coinbase. And they actually stole all of her money out of her Coinbase account because they were pretending to be Coinbase, and they told her that she needed to send money somewhere in order to verify it or whatever it was. She lost 10 G's by just a phone call and a fake pretend phone call, And so people like to attribute it a lot to being in the crypto, but in reality, it's in every industry. And sadly, a lot of the scammers will target elderly people in order to they know they're easy targets, It's just something you kind of at least that I've realized, you just kind of have to navigate in the world. It's not something that you can constantly avoid. It's not something that you can really be undiligent about. You have to be really, really diligent. You have to be really aware. You have to be concrete. When I get a text message from my bank, I'm checking it 4 or 5 times. You know what I mean? I'm even calling my bank if I need to call my bank to make sure that it's actually valid. I don't click any of those links. And so it's just part of the game that you kind of have to realize in the world we're currently in. And hopefully one day that changes. But I actually don't think it's super exclusive to crypto either.
I think you make a really good point that with the advent of the internet, you had to learn that if you're on a site that looks dodgy AF, don't put your credit card details into it. And likewise, if people are texting you or if they phone you out of the blue rather than you phoning them, your hazard lights have to go on straight away. And if you don't learn that lesson, then likely you get scammed. But I think the difference is, in those instances, normally it's coming out of your bank account, and therefore you can normally claim the money back from your bank. So even though it's not nice, and you should be able to get your money back, whereas in crypto, it's just, you just don't have that safety now, unfortunately, which those other industries sort of do. So
how long will that go on though? Because if I get $3,000 stolen out of my bank account and the bank can just say, all right, we're good, we refund you, where the fuck is that other $3,000 coming from? They're just making it up. You know what I mean? Because they can't get back the 3,000 that was stolen. The dude already took it. It's already gone. He's already cashed it out. He's already spent it. You know what I mean? So the bank's just making up a number and adding it to my bank account number and saying you're good. So either way, like, it's incongruent with reality. Like, crypto is actually more congruent with reality. If you get $3K stolen from your crypto account, that shit is gone. Nobody can like refund you. No mommy and daddy can like, or fill your crypto wallet back up. And I actually think that that's kind of why crypto is here. It's here to teach us a little bit more personal responsibility, especially on the financial spectrum.
You bring up an interesting point about like why financial institutions came to be, why credit card companies came to be. You know, do people like that idea that they could do a chargeback and now cards charge a fee to kind of have this kind of basically insurance pool of money because they expect some percent of transactions to need to be reversed? And how does that all dovetail into crypto, where everything's basically like a cash transaction? It's just settled and that's it. There's no refund. There's no central intermediary to help out with that.
The bank's like, fuck it. We lost $3K. Month, we refund people $50K or $150K. I'm just going to call the Federal Reserve. Yo, dude, we're down $150K, bro. That's what happens, you know? Like, and people want to stay ignorant to that, but we can only stay ignorant to that for so long. I mean, the US dollar is literally at the peak right now of how long a currency has been in existence. I think 101 years before the US dollar is like the actual like year, like to date, of how any currency throughout all of history has stayed in existence. And most of them have died around like the 80 to 100 year mark because of the overinflation, the overprinting, and the fact that you can't do that forever. Now the US has figured out a way to manipulate it where they're okay for right now, but in reality, like, you continue to do that for another 20 or 30 years, we're going to find ourselves in a financial crisis. And it's only propped itself up so far because we've made the US dollar seem to be the like pristine currency to have. But if you look at any of these foreign countries, especially like the third world countries like Venezuela and shit, they're actually dumping their US dollars for Bitcoin. You know, they're putting more money into these alternative assets because they see it coming, because it's already happened in their country and it's already like in the middle of financial crisis because of their corrupt nations overprinting capital in order to fund whatever the fuck they want to fund. And so it's all good and well, like, for the majority of people that just don't want to think about that and are just like, cool, I got my $3K back in my bank account that got hacked. Yeah, that's great. But in the long run, like, whether it's our generation or our children's generation, like, we're going to have to face it at one point in time.
It's actually already happening too. We're in the early innings of the quote unquote de-dollarization. Countries like India, China, Brazil, among others, are setting up trade channels and using currencies that settle in currencies other than the dollar. And I think, to your point, like, there is this kind of growing movement with other countries to hopefully move off of the dollar. I think that's what their goal is. And then that kind of giant elephant in the room with the petrodollar, how does that eventually shake out in the next 10 to 20, 30 years? I mean, that could be a big factor that affects demand for the currency. So, yeah, I could totally see that happening.
Because ultimately you need productivity in the country, don't you? And America had that when it just became this sort of industrial machine, especially after the Second World War. Everyone else was, KO'd after 4, 5, 6 years of bloodshed. And America was just suddenly, Henry Ford inspired industrial machine has just soared during that period. And then it's fine to sort of borrow because, you're just going through this incredible productivity growth. And unless something like crypto or AI kickstarts another one, then they're just, the dollar is destined to the ash heap, I think. So which also is funny because America is sort of the one country in the world which is desperately trying to push back against crypto more than anyone else. So it really does feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot, because this is probably one of the only two opportunities they've got to sort of restore some faith in the US dollar.
100%. I mean, they don't want the mass population understanding this, and they don't want them, like, most people know it, but a lot of people don't understand it, and they don't understand like the actual implications that can happen when you start to overinflate a currency and when you start to print too much of it. And that's what they don't want, because as soon as people start to understand it, then they start to look at like our leaders and not pedestal them like geniuses. They start to look at them as they actually are, which are like, to a degree, like imbeciles, or at least puppets to the people who are not imbeciles, who are actually controlling the financial system and benefiting off of it. And so the more that we stay in this kind of like reluctant phase to actually look at where things are headed, where they're going, and why it would be so important to actually have this effect, and why it would be so important to actually like look at our currencies, then we're going to stay in this, like, it's almost like a limbo phase. Like the government wants to demonize crypto as much as possible. That's why they emphasize the scam section and the scam portions of it versus emphasizing the actual benefits that it can provide to society, because they want to stay in control of the money. And why wouldn't they? As long as they're in control of the money, they're in control of the war, they're in control of the food, they're in control of the culture, they're in control of the people. And the more that those people stay like for lack of a better word, zombies to the actual natures and the way that these things are in play and the way that the forces of our world are working, then they just stay in the little worker force doing what they need to do in order for the country to run, in order for the top people to just continue to be alive and thrive and live the life that they want to live and be billionaires and all of this other shit. And without actually like building products. Like, I think there's like a very, very, very unique like thing that's happening in our world right now, where people are all starting to wake up to that. They're all starting to see like, oh, wow, this is how things are run, whether it's for cultural things that are happening, whether it's political things that are happening, or whether it's financial things that are happening. All of the systems are on like stilts right now, and they're really fucking unstable. And all it's going to take is like one dude or one group of people throwing a little pebble at those stilts for it all to come crashing down. And that's I think they're just afraid of crypto. I think they're ignorant of crypto, and I think they're afraid of it.
One area of crypto that you're super involved in and have been for a while is the NFT space. Obviously, a lot happening, and that term encompasses a lot of different types of projects. But give us your view on what's happening with NFTs these days. Whether it's on the ETH side, Solana side, ordinals. The market's definitely not as active as it was during that last bull run. But what's exciting you about NFTs?
Man, it's very interesting what's happening with NFTs. It's in a very deep lull period. And I think that's mostly because they were hyperinflated, attention wise and financially in the last bull run. When you could sell a monkey picture for $300K, like, come on, and so I think the market's just recalibrating in general, trying to figure out what the actual value of these things are and how do you actually define the value of them. I think a lot of people have become over like sensitized to the fact that markets went down so much and they lost so much money. A lot of the NFT people were like new to crypto. They weren't actually like OGs in crypto. Actually, most OGs in crypto faded a lot of the NFTs.
Yes, 100%.
And so when the market is in such a state, it's really just trying to recalibrate to determine what the value is and how to value it at. And as we're kind of navigating that right now, it's actually really fun for me. I like it because we're redefining what value means. I think a lot of the previous value in the last bull market was determined off of speculation, which is natural for crypto and totally okay. But we're actually seeing that the market is now kind of redetermining what the value is by saying we actually want products, or we actually want real utility. And we're also recalibrating in the aspect of like new things coming up, like ordinals, and actually understanding the actual value behind them. Like in 2021, 2022, nobody gave a fuck if your NFT was on IPFS. They didn't give a shit. Why would they? It's going up 100% a day. You can sell pictures for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, nobody really cared. But now
Yeah.
ordinals are bringing a whole new aspect to the like institutions and to the community in general by saying, wow, this is actually inscribed on chain, and it's actually like valuable due to the fact that you can't change the metadata, you can't change the actual images. I still think there's a lot of speculation behind it, and people are still trying to actually determine like the whole rare Satoshi versus low inscriptions versus all of these different metrics that people are defining as quote unquote valuable. That's just the community saying it and people buying into a narrative, which is okay. It's all part of the crypto game, but we're still trying to define it. And so where I kind of think NFTs are at right now is at that lull period. It's at this period where people are like have finally broken down where they thought value was, and are now like sometimes they're really speculative, but sometimes over speculative about what actual value really means. And for me personally, what I think like is actually a benefit of all of this, if you kind of just slow down and stop speculating on stuff as much. It's what I've done over this bear market. I stopped speculating on NFTs like as heavily. I'll buy things I like here and there. But really what it's showing is that the value of NFTs has always been the same. It's been community, and community is such a buzzword. So people are who listen to this might be like, oh, well, community. But no, in reality, the benefit that comes from buying an NFT is being integrated with a group of people that have a similar mindset to you. And it's much more abstract than saying, oh, I'm going to get a game out of this, or I'm going to be able to participate in this or participate in that. It's much, much different, which is actually what I like about them. I actually think it's okay, because as people try to define actual value, everyone will have a different definition. As people try to define utility, they'll have a different definition. But what can't be denied is the fact that when you join a Sappy Seals, when you join a Pudgy Penguins, when you join a D-Gods, all of a sudden you have a group of people that have a similar mindset to you, that you have, that are doing similar, if not the same things that you do every single day, that you can communicate with around those things. And most people in life don't have that. Like most people in life don't have a group of people that they can communicate what their experiences have been, what their enjoyments are, what they like, and have other groups of people be like, yeah, I like that too, or I've been through that too. And it's very abstract, but I actually think it's the greatest benefit that you can get from an NFT community or from any community. In 2017 to 2018, 2019, 2020, we didn't really have NFTs. There were NFTs, but they weren't popular, and there weren't as deeply ingrained communities around them. There was a group of people that would be buying CryptoPunks that had like that shit, but nobody really listened to them or cared about them. Nobody really PFP'd them to a very high degree. But now that you have this community aspect, you actually have people you can relate to and you can connect with, which I think is almost one of the greatest utilities and benefits that you can ever get from anything, from any project, from anything. Because in crypto, if you're a lone wolf, you're fucked. You're just 100% fucked. I've been a lone wolf. You just want, like, unless you get really lucky, you won't make it. And even if you do quote unquote make it, you're going to be there alone and you're not going to have a very fun time. And so NFTs are really giving the aspect and for people who are on a journey to learn more, on a journey to quote unquote make it, to be able to do it with another group of people, even if they don't know them and even if they're on the opposite side of the world. And that's why I actually think NFTs got really popular in 2021 was because of COVID. Like everyone was locked in their fucking homes looking for ways to connect with other people. And traditionally you go on Tinder and you swipe right, you got a girl at your house that night or that week, you're hanging out. But like COVID, you can't do that stuff. Or typically you call your friend, you're like, hey bro, you want to just drive 5 minutes? I'll see you at Burger King. We'll grab a burger and a movie. Let's hang out. You know that form of human connection is necessary. Like without that form of human connection, you are like, you feel very alone. You can go into a very dark place very easily. And so I really think that that's kind of why NFTs got really popular early on, was because of the lack of connection and the ability to connect with like-minded people around the world just because you owned a PFP of one another. And it's what the top projects have done really well. They've constantly instigated the connection factor. DGods, even Sappy Seals or Bored Apes. Like the very beginning, Bored Apes wasn't about a metaverse. It was literally about a group of people on the internet having the same PFP, and that's why I joined Twitter as Function, because I saw this happening on another account I was on. I was like, oh, let me make a new account just to focus on NFTs. And like, I'm about to buy a Bored Ape, so why not? And I bought one. I PFP'd it. All of a sudden, I have 1,000 followers, and these people are all in my DMs. I'm in their DMs. How can we support each other? Like, that's the connectivity factor that I think most people overlook or take for granted, but what actually brings value to the NFT sphere.
I think I'm slightly more skeptical, I have to say, because 100% I agree that with NFTs, the community aspect, that's the real breakthrough moment. And you don't get that with a meme coin, do you? Because it's broken down into individual ones, there can only be maximum 10,000 of us. And in fact, there's probably only 3,000 or 4,000 of us. So it does really build that community side. But I think I struggle because you can be part of a community for, say, 10 Sol. You don't have to spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 just to be in a sort of a better community, because there's no guarantee that, and in fact, often's the case, you might be with an even worse community with the really high price tag. So to me, it seems that there's speculation during 2021. You want to be part of that community because the price was going up and everyone's going crazy, and you want to be in that group. But to me, something like DGods, I think it has value as well because it's got season 3 coming up, for example. There's that inherent, just like what we were talking about earlier, you need the speculation. You need that as an inherent selling point of any crypto product. And I think if you don't have that, unless you're a CryptoPunks, which fine, they get by with just community because they can easily handle having 5, 6, 7,000 unique people who just want to be in that community and are happy to pay that price. But I think you need that speculative side, and maybe Mad Lads on Solana, the fact it's associated with the wallet and some pretty kick-ass devs. I think it adds that speculative side.
No, I definitely don't disagree with you. I think what I'm speaking more to is the undertone of value that is given directly from people that interface with the speculative value. I think the speculative value is kind of what makes it fun, but also what makes it very high risk. Crypto's always been high risk. It all, like, no matter if you're buying Solana, Bitcoin, ETH, like Bitcoin has now over time become less high risk, but it's still like a higher risk asset than most. Most assets in the world don't go down 85% in a bear market, Then you add NFTs on top of it. You're essentially gambling on top of a gamble. You know what I mean? You're speculating on top of another speculation. And I definitely don't disagree with you that the speculative nature is what brings like the attraction to it. But like at the same time, I think that the underlying value that everyone gets, whether you're speculating on a $10 NFT or a $100,000 NFT, is you get the ability to connect with people. And I think there's other values that are more abstract and sometimes valuable to others and sometimes not valuable to others. The only reason that people wanted to buy a Bored Ape when it was 150 ETH was because they wanted to be in the club. But really all they wanted to do was flex it on Twitter, and they wanted to get clout from that. Like, is that valuable? To some people, it's super fucking valuable. So it's worth 150K to flex for some people. That one guy sold his Lamborghini to buy a Bored Ape. That was that valuable to him because he's wanted to be higher on the social ladder on the internet. To other people, it's not as valuable. To other people, they don't care that deeply about that. They care more about just like connecting with people. And maybe they don't need to buy a $150,000 asset to do that. Maybe they just need to buy a $150 one, And so it's just kind of like where you choose to play the game. I think speculation is the fun part of the industry. It's the risky part of the industry, but it's also the part of the industry that leaves a lot of people in the place where they're at right now. Like angry, frustrated, down bad, etc. Because if you are not aware of, or even like, let me rephrase that. If you're choosing not to be aware of the high level of speculation that you're playing in, then you end up down bad and you end up frustrated. And while all of it feels like a terrible experience, I also think it's a very, very good experience because it teaches you essentially how to be personally responsible. You see a lot of people on Twitter being like, oh, my asset lost this much. That guy shilled it to me, or that guy said I should buy it. Like, that guy was tweeting about it. And while that's all true, like you're the guy that clicked the buy button. You didn't click the sell button. You held it. And so there's an aspect that I think the industry is really trying to teach people, that I'm still learning every single day, that I'm still trying to integrate myself at a deeper degree at, is like, how do I take 100% personal responsibility for my reality? How do I not blame anyone, and even myself? Like, how do I like take responsibility without blaming myself, without ending up in guilt or self-judgment and all of these other things? It's much more of a subtle emotional game than people like understand, or choose to understand. And even if you hit some big wins, like I have a bunch of guys that were like, dude, you were the guy that was tweeting DGods when they were 3 to 5 soul, bro. I bought so many then. Thank you. You fucking made me so much money. I'm like, no, I didn't do shit. Like, you bought it. I might have brought awareness to like into your reality because you saw it at first, but you went and you said, I'm going to buy it despite whatever reason, like despite if it was, Function said buy it. I had never said buy it, but Function was tweeting about it. I'm going to buy it because he's got a good track record. Either way, you made that decision, because I also have a terrible track record. You could have bought 100 wiener dogs on Solana and they could all be worth 0 right now. I know mine. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like this game of taking personal responsibility for all your wins and losses, while also being grateful for people that maybe brought it into your awareness or not. But if you won or you lost, it's your fault, And I think that's what like crypto is really here to teach a lot of us.
For sure. Kind of to summarize some of the things you said, it feels to me like we shouldn't shy away from these initial use cases with respect to NFTs that have already demonstrated some staying power, especially in the bull market. One of them being this, I like to call it an internet native country club or social community, where you kind of just have this, in some cases, a gate kept, but sometimes not, whether it's a Discord server or a Telegram group of people who also bought the thing and who most likely share a lot of the same ideals and goals as you. I totally see that being, even in the next bull run, a key feature for a lot of successful NFTs. But the other one, which I think is important and it gets demonized a lot, is just a way to signal whether it's status or just kind of membership in some community in an internet native manner, whether it's literally Twitter, like verifying you own this NFT on chain and you could show it to everybody. We can't sleep on that. I mean, LVMH is a luxury goods company. It's number 12 biggest company in the world in terms of market cap. And, people like luxury goods because it allows them to show and signal something to others that is clearly important to a lot of people. And as this younger generation spends more time on the internet and cares more actually about their internet appearance than probably even their in-person appearance, it only makes sense that the NFTs are the only asset class that's on chain that could facilitate that kind of functionality. And that's ignoring all the other use cases, which I'm bullish on too. Ticketing, utilities, taking some physical thing and making it on chain and tradable. That will all happen, but we can't sleep on those initial use cases either.
I think what people don't really understand is so much of this is abstract and a lot of it's just an experiment. So the harder that people try to define what utility means, the more the goalpost moves.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in some aspects, but it's also one of the things that irks me the most about the industry, if I'm being honest. When I get on Twitter Spaces and people are like, no, the utility needs to be this and it needs to be defined, it needs to be ticketing. I'm just like, no, man, like go back to Web 2. You know what I mean? Like if you want something that's definitive, go to Web 2 and sell a product. You sell the product. If it works when it gets to the guy's house from Amazon, you're good. It's done. Transaction over. Right. But a lot of the times, like we want to define things the same way that we've experienced them. And we can't really understand that we're in an experience that isn't defined yet. We are doing the definition of it. Like we as participants are literally defining how this operates. And as we kind of navigate through this realm to a deeper degree, I think it's really, really important that as many of us keep that in mind as possible, because if you get too definitive on it, like too early, then you actually limit the creative capacity that it can and eventually will encompass. And that's one of the main things that I'm always really focused on preaching, is trying to like open up perspective a little bit more for myself as well as for the community and as a whole, because you can yell rug at the guy whose floor price is down 50%, or you can observe all the other factors that are involved. You know, you can see that he's a founder who's working hard, who's trying, who actually doesn't have any control of the market. You can see the market's in a really shitty fucking place. You can see that there's like, he's trying utilities that may just not be hitting. I mean, for 8 months straight, or 6 to 8 months straight, DGOD's had a utility that didn't hit. That's why 6 months after mint, you could buy them still for fucking 50 or $100. You know, now you can buy them for 10 to 15 grand, sometimes 20 grand, whatever the floor price is now. But that wasn't defined. No one knew that. You had to take an educated guess. You had to like kind of speculate, and you had to see like that Frank like and his team were experimenting and trying new shit. So you also had to experiment and try to see if you could make like a good investment in something, if that's the way you wanted to play the game. And I think a lot of it's just a lot more speculative and a lot more nuanced than people realize and recognize. And most of the time, people are just looking for a concrete answer because they want to be here to be rich and be rich as quickly as possible. And the reality of it is that's not how the game works. The game works by like you experimenting and trying new things and like doing your best to not become resentful when those things don't hit, and just do your best to continue to stay active and diligent and aware.
How do you think about like finding projects? How do you discover them? How do you diligence them? I'm sure there's a lot of scar tissue you've accumulated over the years. I certainly have my fair share. But how do you think about the liquid side of crypto these days?
I mostly look for community. And that's why I preach community so hard, is like, it is a buzzword, but at the same time, it is like the main indicator that I use to buy things. Whether it is a community that's already formulated or the potential of a community to formulate. And that usually comes from either a very, very strong founder who I can see has the ability to pivot and who I can see has the ability to stay with it even through the ups and the downs. That's why I bought 55 DGODs between 3 and 10 SOL. That's why I did, because Frank came to me and he's like, hey, I want to run something past you. We have this idea for Dust and for Dead Gods. Do you like it? Paper hand bitch tax, it isn't working. And I saw, oh, cool, this guy has the ability to pivot and he has the ability to be creative and he's got a strong team around him. And the community was already there. There was like a lot of people that in the DGODs community early just hated Frank and were mad at him, but they were still there, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, cool, I'll take a bet on this guy. So I look for founders that have the capacity to either A, build a team really well, or B, pivot really well, or C, hopefully all of those things really well. And then sometimes there isn't even a vocal founder or anyone, but I watch as communities kind of grow and fluctuate, you know. I think a great example right now is Harry Potter, Sonic, Obama, 10 Inu coin. You know, I was watching that when it was like a $5 or a $10 million market cap, and they're ravenous. They're ravenous and almost to a mentally deranged degree. You know, it's one of the most unique things that I've seen in crypto, because as a community starts to form and take on the responsibility of the growth of the project for themselves, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives me so much more confidence in making an investment in something and makes me believe that it has potential. And a lot of communities can do that for a short period of time, which is kind of where the nuance lies and where the like abstract nature of all of this lies. Is some communities can be fucking loud and vocal and do all of these things for a couple months and then they just die off slowly. But some of them, when you watch them, you just have that feeling and you just know, you're like, this is something special. It's something creative. It's something unique. You know, I was looking at the Harry Potter one at what, like 5 or 10 million market cap. Now it's at 50, you know, and that's probably still early, depending upon if we're in a bull market or not. You know, I'm not financial advice, but it's something like that I always look for. And I always look for founders that are like constantly building, because a founder that realizes that his first iteration isn't going to be perfect and is willing to pivot is one of the strongest qualities that you can ever have. Especially in a market that's constantly pivoting. If you have a founder that just gets stuck on his idea and wants to keep pushing his one idea that isn't working, he could stay with it for years and it could still be not really doing much shit. So those are kind of the two indicators that I look for.
I was reading Reddit the other day, and yeah, they were talking about Solana, and all they can see is just there's this huge cult, and they just can't quite grasp, what's going on here, and maybe don't have the sort of intellectual curiosity to sort of find out. But yeah, I think it's those sort of signals, isn't it, that you have to listen to as an investor. Always stay curious. And if you see, a fanatic fan base, look closer, because often, there's going to be some good stuff to unearth. Perhaps as a final question, at the very start of this conversation, you talked about that you're trying to expose more of your intellectual side, which I think you certainly have done over the last hour. And you also talked about your spiritual side as well. So I just wondered if you a couple of minutes just on how you like to express your spiritual side, and if you've got any pearls of wisdom for us and our listeners.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I try to share a little bit more of my spiritual side through my experiences, which is just like what I've been through and how I'm still learning from those experiences to grow as a human. And I think like one of the deepest, most misunderstood concepts that I've always seen ever since I like came into crypto, and still it's less prevalent, but it's still semi-prevalent, is like people tell you that you have to turn off your emotions as a trader. I actually think it's the opposite. I actually think you have to be hypersensitive to your emotions. It doesn't mean that you allow your emotions to fluctuate your decision-making to a great degree, but it means that you have the ability to feel into the ecosystem that's around you, and you have the ability to like kind of like intuitively sense what's happening and what's moving. I do believe that every single human has this quality. I believe that everybody has different levels of sensitivity to that. And I believe that if you're not super concrete in your belief system while you're emotion and you get too emotional, then you can just spin off into fucking nowhere. But what I also observe a lot of the time is like, if you become too rock hard, then you're just going to be making trades and investing in things based off of like intellectual nature. And it can work out for you. You can do the TA and you can chart things. You can still be really good at it, but you're not going to have a very fun time. And two, it's going to be extremely stressful on your body. So one of the things that I've always done, and I'll fully attribute it to my last bull run success, was I was able to very, very, very intuitively feel into my environment and feel into the communities that I was a part of and feel into the overall broad community of crypto and sense things. That's how I was able to like be very early to Bored Apes, mutants, DeGods, all like famous foxes, tons of different things. Because while I'm giving you a lot of this conversation is very like analytical and intellectual based around how I view it, a lot of that is based off of how I felt under the surface and portrayed that like through the intellectual side of myself. And if you can start to kind of feel into the actual things that are happening, you can almost, it's very spiritual, but fuck it. Like you can feel into the group mentality. You can feel into when there's excitement, when there's fear, you can feel into these things. And if you can stay stable enough in it, which is still a practice for me, then you can make very, very, very good decisions and feel very good about those decisions. A lot of the times, if you get too stuck in either overly emotional or like not emotional and like at all, or not in touch with your sensitivity and your feelings, then you are only making like decisions off of like concrete thought processes. And if the price goes up afterwards, after you sold, even if you did make a bag, you can end up beating yourself up a lot. And what I've learned is like, it's almost a spiritual practice to be able to A, feel into making a decision, B, make the decision, take the risk to make the decision, feel all the emotions that are involved in making that decision and how risky it is to, and then C, kind of feel into the place where you need to sell. And even if you make a sell and it goes up another 50 or 100%, being okay with that and like recognizing that it's all part of the game, it's all part of the process, and moving on to the next one and not getting stuck on the one that you missed or you were sold early or you sold too late is so much like it's a huge part of this game. There's way too many people, including myself sometimes, that just get stuck in thinking about old decisions, get stuck in thinking about the old patterns that were, and don't look at the potential things that could be. And that's what I think is so important in the crypto realm, because it's always changing. It's always moving.
Yeah. It's almost like you're not over-indexing to your analytical mind, but kind of leaning into your intuition, which subconsciously is already doing this pattern recognition and trying to guide you on the right path and just embracing it, which I think is a great lesson. And it's hard to do consistently for me too, but it's an active practice. And I think, whether people call it listening to your gut or things like that, it does lead to better decisions oftentimes.
Yeah, and you can tell when your breath stops. You know what I mean? You can tell when your anxiety kicks up and you don't breathe as deeply. You can tell when you start to feel like a little bit more tense because your breath isn't moving and because you're sitting there on a leverage trade at 20x on with $20,000 and it's right about to get liquidated. You know what I mean? Like you can feel that like contraction in your body. And for me, like a lot of the practice has been honestly like getting liquidated and then sitting on my fucking couch after I lost 20 grand and just being like letting all of it, just like feeling as much of it as I can, just like hearing all the negative thoughts that want to beat me up, but continuing to breathe, continuing to stay stable until the emotion moves, until the energy moves. And then boom, I'm good, and then not only am I good, I'm stronger for the next time and I'm ready to fucking roll.
Amazing takeaway. And I think a good note to conclude this on. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael, and sharing your wisdom.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.